Charlie, now to a Fox News alert. President Biden has just announced proposals to reform the Supreme Court. This happening literally a minute ago. These would include no immunity for crimes a former president committed in office, term limits for Supreme Court justices, and a binding code of conduct for the Supreme Court. Joe Biden also releasing a new op-ed this morning, saying in part, quote, "This nation was founded on a simple yet profound principle. No one is above the law. Not the President of the United States, not a justice on the Supreme Court of the United States, no one. I have overseen more Supreme Court nominations as Senator, Vice President, and President than anyone living today. I have great respect for our institutions and separation of powers. What is happening now is not normal, and it undermines the public's confidence in the court's decisions, including those impacting personal freedoms. We now stand in a breach." Katie Cherkasky is a constitutional law attorney and former federal prosecutor. She's here now to react. Katie, that's a mouthful. What's your reaction to those plans?
Well, these are very pie-in-the-sky type of ideas. Nothing about the Supreme Court reforms could be immediately implemented, but it certainly shows the position of the Democrat Party. They don't like the outcome of the court's ruling, so they want to change the rules here. So many of these reforms would require, if not legislation, actual constitutional amendments. So again, not politically viable at the moment, but certainly a strong and radical position.
Yeah, such an important point that politically this can never happen because a constitutional amendment requires all three branches of government. I mean, not the three branches, but you need the House, the Senate, and the president. You also need 38 of the 50 states to sign on. There are too many Republicans for this to work. But on the immunity front, let's focus on that. Isn't this a bill of attainder, basically creating a law, in this case an amendment, that targets one person, Donald J. Trump?
Well, I think that would certainly be the argument. And not only that, I think it's a very myopic position. The reason that SCOTUS came down with that immunity decision is because they considered the impact of the presidential office and the idea of prosecuting a president. And so to take away that idea through legislation, which again is not very feasible, would impact so many other things that it would not be a viable office. And essentially, there's separation of power issues all over the place and constitutional issues all over the place. So this is, again, just a political talking point, but a very extreme one, in my opinion.
Joe Biden says this is all about restoring faith in the Supreme Court. But doesn't something like this, a statement like this, and a policy position like this, cloaked with the veneer of the White House, really end up undermining trust in the Supreme Court in the first place?
Well, that's exactly what's been going on here. They've been sowing distrust in the Supreme Court because they simply don't like some of the decisions that have come out. And that, again, is a very myopic position because many of the decisions from the court are unanimous or they don't fall along partisan lines. So certainly there are some very key issues that Democrats don't like, and that is what is motivating this. But certainly it is disrespectful to that co-equal branch of government from the executive branch.
Curious if you agree with my take. The Supreme Court is the one institution in our country that Democrats have not been able to undermine the way they want, to take control of the way they want, and it frustrates them to no end. Do you agree with that?
Well, absolutely. And when President Trump was able to appoint 3 justices, Biden only got to appoint 1. It's just the luck of the draw sometimes, too. And certainly there are politics involved with that. And it's very disappointing, I'm sure.
Before we let you go, how do Republicans spin this announcement that just came down literally 4 minutes ago on the campaign trail going forward, especially President Trump against Harris?
Well, this is clearly anti-constitutional. What you're proposing, what the Democrats are proposing, would require an amendment to the Constitution. So it's very ironic coming from a party talking about stealing democracy that they are going forward with such a radical talking point here.
Katie Cherkasky just gave the Republicans their talking point if they want it. Thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate it as always.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.